Hi guys, welcome back to my channel after a very long time. And in today's video, I'm going to walk you through two of my case studies which I had put in my master's application portfolio. Now these two studies are very distinct from each other because I wanted to show the kind of variety that I had in my projects when I was submitting them. However, since these were done quite some time back, I might have some comments as to how I would improve them if I were making the portfolio now. And also, just a disclaimer that these portfolio projects are in no way close to perfect, and your way of showing your work should be absolutely unique to you. So don't hesitate from showing your personality as a designer when you shape your case studies. And since these universities have been seeing portfolios and case studies for so long now, they immediately get to know if your work is not original. So these are in no ways templates for you, but just references and points which worked well for me and might help you as well. So let's jump right in. So to begin with, let us have a look at the cover page of the portfolio. Here I had clearly mentioned all the different projects that I have included within the portfolio and also the categories that they belong to. So here, by looking just at the cover, they get an idea of the different range of projects that they are going to view ahead. I also gave a short intro of myself, of who I am as a designer. Now, this could definitely be written in a much better way, but this is what I had put in at that time. I also mentioned these keywords, which are design, architecture, and research, to show them that these are the main categories of what the projects are going to span across, and these are the specialities also that I bring forward as a designer. So this sums up the kind of work that is going to be viewed ahead. So now coming to the first project, let us first discuss this project which I had done as part of a workshop that I attended. So I followed a very similar format or structure for all the projects for their cover pages at least, wherein I mentioned the project number at one side, and also the topic was given here, and then what kind of a category does the project belong to. So, for instance, I've clearly written the topic here, which is increasing reviews on Goodreads. Goodreads is an existing platform, and this was not a new product, not a new digital product that I was designing. It was more like a feature addition to a already existing project. So I've clearly mentioned the title, and here I've also mentioned the category that it belongs to, or the kind of work that I have done within this project, which includes problem validation, user identification, the solution that I proposed, and the design of it. So that is what all it's going to curtail. Next, in this section, I've given more context of the project. So, what was the timeline like? And what kind of a setup was it done in? So, for instance, this was done as part of a online workshop or fellowship that I attended. I've mentioned that. And what category does it belong to? So, it was a product design and management kind of a program which I did, and the project belongs to that category. And also, I've clearly mentioned that it was an individual project. If in case it's a group project, or the projects that I included which were done as part of a group, I had clearly mentioned the number of people in the group and also what my individual contribution to that project was, because they want to see what all you are able to achieve within a project. So this section I used to set the context. Then the area below that I mostly dedicated to the most crucial aspects to set more base for the project. For instance, in this project, like giving more information on what the problem was, and because the problem identification was a part of identifying of the project, so I've given what the problem was and how I validated it, so some insights from the research, and also made sure that these numbers get highlighted by how the hierarchy of the text is. And I've also given some kind of interview insights, because these were the two kinds of researches that I conducted in order to validate the problem. So, setting the base for the project. So, coming to the left hand side of the page, here in all projects, I use this side to show a visualization of the project, and it was more like an infographic rather than just an illustration or like a render, because I wanted to convey more information from it because the portfolio real estate was quite limited. So, in this project, I've explained how the product goals and the business goals aligned with each other with the help of the features that I introduced within the project. So, for different projects, the goal to explain the project in a very small illustration was different, but because this was the most crucial aspect for this project, this is what I had explained, done for this one. I also use this space to explain what Goodreads is because it is an existing platform and maybe not all the viewers who are seeing this know about it. I wanted to give some kind of a background of what Goodreads is in within this real estate. So that's how I utilize the left hand side of the page. Coming to the next page of this project, here I've tried to explain how I narrowed down the larger problem that I had and how I derived the solution area or the space that I'm going to present the final design in. So, showing a bit of the background work that I did. So, first of all, in this first section, I've mentioned the different target users that I identified and which ones are the final ones that I'm going ahead with, and which are the target users that my design is going to focus upon right now. Then I've given a section of the different solutions that I ideated. So, showing that I do not go ahead with the first solution that comes to mind, but I am in a practice of brainstorming, coming up with multiple ideas, and then narrowing them down. I also mentioned the key features that I had thought of within each of these design ideas. Now, ideally, I should have also mentioned the reasons of why I went ahead with one solution over the other, but probably because of the limited space that we had, I had not gone in that much detail. But if I were to do it now, I would add a sentence or two as to why I chose the accountability communities aspect of it for going ahead in this project. Then, here I have briefly mentioned that I did this analysis based on the rice metrics, but this could have been elaborated a little more. And now I'm starting to, explain the design a little more in detail. So now I have put in all these two screens, which are the two key features of the final design proposition. And here you can see that I've clearly mentioned that which page it is, what does the page contain, and then each of the features that I've introduced within that page is what is highlighted with the help of these markers. And I've also mentioned why I have given a feature. So on the screen you can see what I have given, and here with the labeling I've tried to establish that what was the reasoning behind giving a particular feature on that page. So that's a similar format that I've followed across all case studies which were of this category where I had worked on a digital product. Then here I've explained what value will it generate. So it shows that I'm not only thinking for the end users, but I'm also mindful of the business impact of my design decisions. And since most of the courses that I was applying to were a little beyond just basic UX design and HCI, and they were more interdisciplinary, this was kind of important to show that my thinking goes beyond just the end users. And I've mentioned the kind of value propositions that will be there for both of them. Then I've also included a link to the prototype. So I know that PDFs are not that interactive if you compare them to a web page, but whatever is possible within this landscape is what we can try to achieve. So linking your prototypes can be quite handy because you can't always give all the screens of the flow on a PDF page. So that makes it a little more interactive in that sense. So now coming to the last and the final page of this project, it had a continuation of the mock-ups where again I have put the other screens and the features that have gone into them, and again the reasoning behind them. Next, I had mentioned the success metrics for the project. So, since the context of the project was such that I had done it in a product management fellowship, these things were very crucial to consider. And also, as a designer, I believe that it is very important to acknowledge these factors, that how are you going to measure the success of your design solutions, and it shows your holistic thinking. So that is why I had put these metrics over here, and also the North Star metric. Again, the next and the final section was of possible pitfalls and solutions. So this shows that okay, you can think beyond the solution that exists right now, and you are mindful of what could go wrong. So here I had mentioned that these are the things that might not work as per plan, and this is how I would, mitigate these problems going forward. Because as a student, we need to understand that nobody is expecting or looking for perfect solutions, but they are expecting you to have that open mindedness and mindset, that okay, you acknowledge the challenges and you do have some kind of an idea as to how you would address them. So this is how I ended this project, because it was not a project that we were launching or was done as part of a professional setup. I didn't have other metrics to support it. So this is the kind of thinking that I tried to depict through this project, that I can think beyond the project once it's towards completion. Also, there are some smaller things that I would like to highlight within this project are the numbering of the sections. So why is this important is because if you come back to this page, there's a 3.1 section and 3.2 section and 3.3 section. So we want the viewer to read the page or the case study in a story like format which we have designed, and we don't want them to read it in any manner that they would like. So these smaller aspects, because my layout was such, were crucial so that they follow the reading order which I want them to follow. However, in your case, this could look very different. Sometimes only the visual hierarchy works out, and you don't have to add these aspects to it. But for the layout and the kind of visual language that I was following, these kind of things really made a difference. So yeah, so that is how I concluded this project, and these were the smaller aspects that I was mindful of. Now let's get into the next project. So now let us have a look at the next project, which is my architecture thesis. So now, since this was a thesis project and this was like a semester long project, one can expect much more detail in it, and which is why mentioning the timeline and the context of the project becomes very important, because some projects you do over a week's period of time, some might be some design sprints, and some could be very in depth projects which you do for a longer period of time. So that is why I mentioned that over here. A quick overview of the problem that I was solving, and an illustration or a view from my final submission. And I also paid attention to smaller details as to show where this view was taken from, and mentioning the source that it was made by me and it is not some illustration that I downloaded off the internet. So those were the smaller aspects that I paid attention to while making the cover page of this project. Here, I use this side of the page to explain my design process in detail. So, because this is an architecture project and it's quite different from the UX case studies and from the usual design thinking case studies that I've presented, I wanted to explain and in detail the design process that I adopted for this project. However, if I were to do it now, I would make the diagram much more simplified so that it's more graspable when you look at it in one go. Right now, it is a bit complicated, and one would really have to go into the details of it to decode it. But this is what I had put on the cover page for my architecture thesis. So moving forward, here I started to explain my area program of the project, because in an architectural project, the area program literally forms the basis of anything and everything that you're going to do ahead. And since this was a part of the project, that we had to define the different functions that we are going to give within our project, it was important to discuss that at this stage. However, rather than adopting a very technical language or like giving an Excel sheet for that, which is how usually you would present an area program, I try to depict it through my user centered approach and how I derived it by talking to actual users and actual people who are going to be using the site, and then assessing the different kinds of users that would be visiting the complex, which would be tourists, artisans, craftsmen, and all of those people who I anticipate would be coming to the final designed complex, and what kind of spaces would they require. So it was not something that I thought of out of the blue, but it was actually the different spaces that I provided within the complex were derived out of the user needs who are going to be visiting the complex in the future. So in these two sections, then I've highlighted how I derived the final design and what the design process and different iterations on the way look like. So for instance, over here, I'm talking about the site planning and why I placed a function where I placed it. So some reasonings for that and how it evolved over time. In this section, I'm talking about the different forms that I explored before deriving the final one. So what were the reasons, why have I used courtyards, and how did I place the courtyards. They were based on some kind of orientation studies, sustainability studies, and also the contextual studies that I did before that. So giving the reasoning of each and every design decision that you're taking becomes very crucial. It shows that you have the capability of assessing the information that you have and then basing your design decisions on that. And also showing the process becomes very important because you're kind of depicting that, you're not going forward with the first idea that comes to your mind, and you're actually developing it over time. Again, over here, since I'm using a lot of diagrams, it becomes important to show like a legend or a key of the labeling that you've used. So here, because I was using a lot of icons, I've explained that what do these different icons stand for, so that the legibility and the readability of the diagrams is quite clear. So these are the smaller things that we need to keep in mind while we are using visual tools to communicate the ideas. So then, to showcase my final outcome, I use such a 3D diagram instead of resorting to plans and sections which are much more technical, and which is the usual way of depicting any architectural project. However, because I did not know that who is going to be in the viewing committee for my portfolio, I wanted to keep it very simple in terms of communicating my ideas, and hence I stuck to such a diagram. Also, within this entire complex, I've tried to explain each aspect of it through easy to understand line diagrams or images, and at each stage, I tried to explain how I'm translating the concept which I had in mind, which was of using traditional elements in a more contemporary way, by highlighting each of the features of the project. So I'm trying to show that the concept that I had in mind is being translated and reiterating and reinforcing it by these smaller visualizations. And this is what the entire complex, once I had done the previous background work of it, looked like. On this page, I went into further more detail within the project, and as I mentioned, because this was a thesis project, it is expected that you would be adding way more detail to it as compared to other projects. So, here I resorted to axonometric visualizations and some 3D renders to showcase that these are also some skills that I possess, and also explaining the different levels and layers of detail that had gone into each aspect of it. Also, because my skill of 3D visualizations, my ability to create 3D models and render them is not getting highlighted through other projects, I really wanted to focus upon that within this project, which is why I made sure that I include some high level 3D renders within this project, because these were something that I had really focused upon while I was actually submitting my proposal. So this is how you can also showcase the ancillary skills, if even if they don't exactly relate to the degree that you're applying to. So then on the last and the final page for this project, I just showed some other renders to show the detail and level of detail that was there in the entire 3D model and complex. And I've also explained them a little because these are also explaining certain aspects of my design. Again, showing the views, how, like, where were they taken from within the complex, so softer and smaller detailed aspects were also covered in this. And then I've tried to end it with showing where all I showcased this project and what were the awards that I won through it, because there were quite a few which I wanted to talk about within this project. However, I feel it would be very good if I would have included some comments from the final jurors, or some kind of takeaways or feedbacks or key learnings from the project as well. That would have made it a more well rounded one. However, this is how I had ended it back then. But definitely, those aspects would add more value to the case study. So, those were two very diverse projects from my portfolio. And again, I would like to emphasize on the fact that your design projects and case studies are a reflection of you as a designer and what your thought process and what your design process looks like. So, make it very unique to you, very personalized, so that you can shine through your work. Also, if you want more general tips on the portfolio as to how to structure it, what kind of projects to include, then I have made a part 1 of this video where there are more general topics and guidelines around portfolios that I had used in my work, which you can also take inspiration from, which I will link in this video. Thanks a lot for tuning in today, and stay tuned for more such content coming up. Bye bye.